can't read it. It's welcome to the show, everybody. Hi, everybody. Welcome. Hi. What does it say? I make great second impressions. Back up. But many people glurble. I honestly, I feel like I'm reading redacted CIA, but not many people know that. I see. I got you. Okay.
Wow.
It took a second. It was. Hi.
I
By the way,
that bitch to focus, yo.
Yeah. Well, it's a hard time because it's not the focus that's the problem. It's the green screen effect. But we're gonna get started. Chicago's coming up in just a second. Yeah. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the show. It's the Hal Sparks radio program, Megaworldwide. We're about to go live on the radio. Good morning, Johnny Million, right there. 10 seconds. And let me know in the chat room, which I've no doubt you guys will do, if audio is okay, because this is also the first time
Ladies
test.
and gentlemen, can I please have your attention? And I need all of you to stop what you're doing and listen.
Now, live from Chicago, the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass.
Hal Sparks, actor, comedian, and multimedia personality.
And I'm all out of bubblegum.
Hal Sparks.
All right, let's do this.
It's true. It's true. Here we are again. Happy Saturday. Thanks for being here. There is a lot going on, obviously, in the world. I cannot decide. Good morning, Johnny Million. How are you? How's your
Morning.
How's your
How
coffee?
You doing, Hal Sparks?
I'm good. I made myself a cup of
Delicious.
coffee this morning, and I left it on the kitchen counter, and it is just going to sit there the whole show. And I'm never going to drink it. And I'm going to walk by a cup of cold coffee later. It's just how it works. Just life. That's just how things go. Sometimes
I would slurp that down.
Sometimes
I'd tell myself that it's iced coffee and the ice melted.
Well, that I will. Oftentimes when I do make that mistake, and it happens because I'm a busy guy, and I will sometimes make myself a cup of coffee and walk away. I will put ice in it and try to make make do with it.
Yeah.
Sometimes it works. Sometimes you're like, that's just awful. That's just terrible. That was a mistake, and it probably has something floating in it that I drank off the top of it, and the cat probably licked the top of it just to see what it was. It's a mistake. I like iced coffee. I have iced coffee, but yeah. So, I mean, there's a lot to talk about today. Not the least of which, of course, is the exit from Afghanistan continues apace. The current numbers are at 110,000. 111,000 as of this morning. The original reports was that there were 6,000 Americans in Afghanistan, in the Kabul area specifically, that the State Department said they were going to try to get out. Now the reports have also come in that there are hundreds that don't plan to leave. And so somewhere in the fact that 5,200 of that 6,000 number have been evacuated already, and that the number of people that don't want to go, including their families, is in the hundreds, that's pretty much set and done. We have, if originally the number was something in the order with embassy personnel and others in there, about 60,000 people. We are at 111,000 that we have gotten out of the country. They are still bringing people out. I have no doubt, by the way, that there will still be some evacuation flights of civilian Afghans to other places that the U.S. military and others will be facilitating using the Hamid Karzai Airport, the ironically named Hamid Karzai Airport, in downtown Kabul, over past Tuesday. But in terms of military personnel on the ground that aren't there for quick takeoffs and landings, relying on some sort of interim deal with the Taliban to not bother flights, and the minute flights get bothered, we stop making them. We're done as of Tuesday. And of course, I mean, you've seen the back and forth. You've been watching the fact that we launched a drone strike on an ISIS Cape planner in the area around Jalalabad. He was parked with a partner. No civilians were thought to be killed. They were alone in a car in an isolated area. I don't know how to pronounce it in Pashto, but it translates as Blueberry Hill. I'm kidding. Apparently, But
I was on board.
thank you. I appreciate you following me on that one. And have you noticed, Johnny Million, all the stories about ISIS-K that have suddenly popped up in the last couple of days? This new name sprung upon us. ISIS in Khorasan, right? The ISIS-K, which is a Western ISIS group that's been operating in Afghanistan since 2015, has claimed territory in northeast Afghanistan as their own, separate from the Taliban-controlled territories. You know, when they show those maps about Taliban controls this area, and there's an area that's like, that's weird, why don't they control that area? Well, part of the reasons is because they may not want it, or ISIS-K is there. And no one seemed to be talking about that until ISIS-K blew up a bomb as we were evacuating people out of there. And the soldiers that we lost and that were injured lost their lives protecting people who were escaping the Taliban. There can be, you know, that level of honor in how they served in that moment raises them to the heights of I think many of all who have served and given their lives, especially the fact that, you know, this is one of the most dangerous things you can do, is trying to separate, you know, would-be terrorists from civilians trying to escape, and still doing that. The work that they were doing, continuing, knowing full well that threat exists, and still trying to help people get their families out of that place before the Taliban fully took it over. And again, took it over in quotes, because nobody expects the Taliban to have a legitimate control over the country. There are 12 tribes that run it. They loosely knit themselves together based on the Taliban. The ISIS and the more farther right Islamic, the true conservatives amongst the Al Qaeda remnants also don't think that that the Taliban are harsh enough, cruel enough, and more orthodox enough in their carrying out of Islamic law, and therefore have declared open war on them. Again, not the best, as they've grown over the years too, and seized territory, which seems to be that's been completely ignored by the media in our country for the last 5 years. Oddly enough, every time Trump said we got rid of ISIS 100%, apparently everybody in the news media just licked the tip of their pencil and went, "Oh, that's interesting, scribble, scribble," and just wrote it all out and moved on. When in reality, they have been growing quite a bit over the last, I would say, 3 years, particularly in Afghanistan, and have certainly found, I think, opportunities for growth, to use a corporate term, in the last year after the Trump administration made a deal with the Taliban that we would be out by May 1st, with no particular plan, by the way, for that removal, other than we get everybody out, the citizens, no one would know they were gone, which begs the question, why were they there in the first place if no one would have missed them? Why would you have them there at all? If there was at all a possibility to remove our embassy staff and all civilians from Afghanistan without them being missed, then why was there even a day longer that you kept those people in the country? It's, you know what I mean? Like, what's the justification for staying a single day further if no one would have missed our embassy staff and civilian operators there at all? If you could have snuck them out, why didn't you? And if you had a great plan, why didn't you carry it out? Because nothing has changed in the last 4 years. Nothing materially in the Afghan government or in the Afghan military has changed at all, except the response to the story by the generals in charge that were painting a rosy picture and had been doing so for quite some time. The only thing that's changed in the last 4 years particularly was the fact that Biden stopped buying the BS. Now, if you'll recall, Biden was against the surge, and not because the surge itself wouldn't work or wouldn't result in getting, killing more Taliban people or providing more, pushing the military into, further into Afghanistan. But because even if it did, it still wouldn't work out. It still wouldn't change anything. We would kill a bunch of people. We would, strafe bomb areas. We would be involved in things that could possibly make us more enemies in the world because civilians might be killed in it. But ultimately would not change the material facts on the ground, would not change the strength or the value of the government or the belief by the Afghans in the government, would not create a situation where the minute we left, the Afghan military wouldn't either give in or surrender their own buddies to the Taliban. Because some groups of the Afghan military were fighting valiantly or chose to fight valiantly until it was absolutely obvious that it would have just been a slaughter. They would have just gone down fighting, but for no good cause. And therefore, no ability to fight again another day. So we've been hearing about ISIS-K over the last couple of days. Now, ISIS-K was formed in 2015, is an offshoot of the Pakistani Taliban. So they operate over the border in Pakistan, get armed, and come back over. And people wonder why the Taliban wasn't willing, or why Pakistan wasn't willing to tell us the truth about where Osama bin Laden was. Curious, eh? So ISIS has moved from Pakistan up north along the border and has claimed northeastern territory. They don't have to claim the southeastern territory because that's the area they kind of already have because they own the territory right over the Pakistani border and can make strikes from there and just kill people and run back home, use it sort of as base. Yeah. So there have been, and by the way, I want to thank everybody for joining us today on the live stream. We got to take a break. When we come back, I want to talk about, we have, I guess the Republican take on Afghanistan is constantly in flux and is getting increasingly ridiculous because it entails asking
That's impressive.
More than one question. Because heads up, news media, if you ask more than one question, you're going to get a ridiculous answer from any of these guys who explain how their plan would have worked and at what point we could have exited Afghanistan without a shot fired. It's an absurdity. We'll be back right after this. It's the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide, live streaming at infotainmentwars.com on YouTube. Subscribe. It helps us out. Come on. And if you don't subscribe because you don't do the YouTube thing, find a 15-year-old and have them subscribe and tell them you can watch it later. I only use grown-up blank during the week. That's right. Absolutely. Put a bunch of frog emojis in there. We'll be back. I swear. I've got some audio from Kevin McCarthy that I have to play because it's.
Oh boy, he's a winner.
Damn, these guys are dumb. And Trump floated this idea, and I'm convinced in a lot of ways that because he floated that idea, they have to be for it. Otherwise, they have to point out that he's a moron. You don't have a choice in this situation.
Yeah.
You have to be all in that there's a magical logic to it.
Yeah, well, with everything,
yes.
They all have to have each other's back, like just by not speaking out against the idiocy.
Right. The biggest one, of course, being that we should negotiate with the Taliban and we can't rely on them to keep their word. I'm sorry. Mike Pompeo says what? I'm sorry. Donald Trump flunky says what? They made the deal with the Taliban. That's what set the May 1st deadline. And we relied on them not to kill any American soldiers, and they kept their side of the bargain. Do you trust them to keep doing it? No. But are they doing it right now? Yeah. And as long as they're doing it right now, we'll meet our side of the agreement. And it's just goofy. The double speak is so childish. It's not even good double speak. So we shall see what we shall see. Let me bring this clip up. Make sure you can hear this.
Okay.
You said he shouldn't be negotiating with the Taliban.
Yep.
You can hear that? Okay.
Yep.
And then-
Show can.
Great. And I think, let's see, I'm gonna make sure Chicago can hear it before we come back. And hi, chat
Coming
room.
back in 10 seconds.
Thank you. Hi, chat room. Good morning. Welcome. Thank you, guys. I should grab my coffee during the break, Dryweight Geek, and I whiffed it. I whiffed it during the next one.
You still have time.
Attention. Stop what you're doing. Because we're coming back to the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
They went a little crazy with it, and I appreciate it.
Now let's get back with Hal Sparks' radio program, Mega Worldwide.
Welcome back, everybody. Thank you very much. Now, we were discussing, Johnny Million and I, during the break, that the Republicans really have, and Johnny, you'll be in charge of kind of checking in with the chat and seeing if they have any kind of things to add during this process, if you will. And of course, our phone lines are open, 773-763-9278. But there is a choice that Republicans have right now. And it is as clear as day. It is the simplest choice because it is the only choice. Now, we have seen many times over the last couple of days, I watched as a reporter for, I believe it was the New York Times in a press conference with Jen Psaki, where he started to, she said, we really have two options in this situation. We can do this or this. And he goes, well, what, how can you say there are other options? Aren't there other options? And she went, like what? And he went, well, if you started drawing down people at this place, and in the middle of giving his answer, he recognized how stupid it was and had to bail out. And as if no one's ever floated these other options on how to leave Afghanistan without a single death. The goal has always been that. Of course it is. And only an idiot thinks they have the magic solution to it. And by idiot, I mean Donald Trump. And the problem that Republicans have is that when Trump comes forward and says, we need to get out entirely, I would have gotten out every nut, every bolt, and then gotten the soldiers out. You're like, okay, how do they get out after? Do we just fly helicopters in while the Taliban and everybody is at war, getting our soldiers out who are standing there holding their wad in the middle of the road after we've straight bombed a military base? I don't get it. But they have a choice. They can either recognize how dumb what he is saying is and go, oh my God, what an idiot. Sort of like Alex Jones did with him on COVID vaccines, but backwards. Or they have the other option, which is, of course, to pretend there's a secret genius to it, that he had a plan that would have worked. It would have worked. If we'd have just done if we'd have just kept Bagram Air Force Base forever, we could get out of Afghanistan without getting out of Afghanistan. It's a miracle. It's, which is idiotic. And so you have people like Kevin McCarthy who want to come out and slam the Biden administration for extending the deadline from May 1st to August 31st and then keeping to it because we don't want to stay there anymore. Figuring out another way that we can help the people of Afghanistan who don't want to live under the Taliban or under draconian rule without doing it at the end of a gun, like we do in a lot of other countries. And of course, if there are terrorist cells, in training camps in the middle of the desert in Afghanistan, it is required that we have a military response to it, doing it like we do in other countries that we don't have military bases in. We just, the attack that we sent that killed the ISIS-K planner was a, quote, over-the-horizon attack, meaning no one on the ground launched the attack. The missile or the drone was launched from far, far away. And get used to that idea increasingly for going forward. The chances of humanoid robots on the ground are a long way off. But even if Bernie Sanders and AOC were president and vice president currently, there would be a point in their presidency where a military strike was necessary, and they themselves would have a drone do it, because drones do not come home in flag-draped coffins. And so that is how the decision is going to be made going forward. And I'm not talking about maybe what the military industrial complex made them. I mean a no-win situation where you have to choose between a lot of dead people and a few dead people. Those kind of decisions that presidents are often called to make, they would make it, and it would be a over-the-horizon attack using a drone. I'm just honest to God, there's no way anybody's going to send 6 soldiers in to do something unless it's the absolute last resort. That's for rescue missions. There is just no way. Just understand that. So, and Kevin McCarthy knows this too. As a matter of fact, he thinks they're the solution to everything. Trump thinks drones and Moabs, are the future, period. Mainly the Moabs. He thinks drones are whiny little machines that are too precise. Doesn't scare everybody. Doesn't put the fear of shock and awe in people the way a Moab does. So here's Kevin McCarthy answering a question about negotiating with the Taliban.
Question. You said he shouldn't be negotiating with the Taliban. Trump did that too, to be clear. So I mean, was it wrong?
And Trump also had conditions, and he upheld the conditions. Trump never gave the names of Americans to the Taliban. Trump's never left Black Hawk helicopters more than Australia has.
Well, there is one little thing there. Trump never left, I think is really just sums up the whole answer. Of course, he never gave names of people who were trying to get through checkpoints to the Taliban, who were maintaining the checkpoints and were protecting people as they went through, because they want us to leave and we have an agreement with them. The reason he never did that is because he never got us out. He ran on it. Nothing changed during his presidency in terms of us staying or leaving, as far as the value of us being there, holding up the government, holding up the military. Nothing. So Trump never gave this information, never left any material stuff behind, never did, because he never left, because he never had to, because he never had to make those choices. I have some news for every Republican listening to the sound of my voice. Every piece of gear that the U.S. military isn't materially using to escape Afghanistan, Trump left behind. Every single piece. Every piece. Not including the parts, of course, that the Biden administration will launch attacks on because they're in Taliban hands and we don't have an agreement to give material support to the Taliban the way we did with the Afghan military. Right. So we're going to blow up these air bases after we're all gone. There's no question. And whether we talk about it or not, whether it makes the news or whether it's a covert hit, is immaterial. It's going to happen. Get used to the idea. Stop kidding yourself. We do it all the time. It would be stupid not to. And there's no reason to brag about it and cause more trouble than you have to and make the Taliban go. They're bragging about the fact that they blew up the right. There are no pilots. They don't have any people servicing these helicopters. They don't have Blackhawks. They have old crappy Soviet aircraft, or they have old leftover U.S. stuff that we don't use anymore. They don't know how to service it. They don't have any pilots. It's sitting in 122 degree heat. It's not going to fly. And the minute it does, it will disappear from the sky. Like anybody who thinks that suddenly there's going to be 9 Blackhawks in V formation flying over Jalalabad with Taliban pilots is an idiot. And speaking of idiots, please continue, Representative McCarthy.
No relations with the Taliban from here on out?
Well, let me be very clear. I would not allow the Taliban to dictate the date that Americans leave.
Yeah, they didn't. We have a date we want to leave. We're not going to extend it because we don't want to be there. They're not scaring us out. They're holding up their end of the deal for their soldiers who they have control of, and tenuous control at that. They're holding it up so that we can get out. After that date, they're not going to, all bets are off with their followers, which they barely are holding on to control of. And the only reason those guys are behaving is because they want us out too. And ISIS wants us in there fighting with the Taliban, so that's why they're attacking. This requires strategic thinking and a recognition that the goal of the American people is to get out. For 67% of the American public want us out of Afghanistan. The other
Sure.
30%-ish, depending in fluctuation. Believe if we should be there, we should have a skeleton crew of military there, not an embassy. And even at that point, what's the military there for? To carry out strikes and endanger our soldiers by basically creating a hostage situation where they're inside a well-fortified military base in a country with no functioning government. Just, by the way, just north of, because they want to keep Bagram, an hour and 19 minutes north of downtown Kabul. By the way, about an hour and a half west of the side of Afghanistan that ISIS has control of. So it's like a little graph that you could kind of over time pinpoint where's the intersection in this algebraic equation of the rise of ISIS against the Taliban, and instead of fighting each other, they just decide to blow up some U.S. service people who are in a base conducting strikes they could conduct from a ship 800 miles away. Anyways, please continue.
That America leaves and leaves Americans behind and allies behind because the Taliban tells you to leave.
By the way, none of that is happening.
No.
That is just, I mean, that is an assertion about the American military that's grotesque. That's an assertion about the State Department that's grotesque. That's an assertion about everybody who serves in Afghanistan, who was in the embassy and all this stuff, like they're stiff-arming their colleagues and friends, you know, climbing over them to get to the airplane. There are hundreds of dual citizenship Afghan Americans and people who work there who are staying. Whether they are staying because they believe that they can work with the CIA to subvert the Taliban and other groups and they don't have a direct linkage and we're not bringing them out, or because they're part of the opium trade, is immaterial. They're not coming.
He's just saying all this so he can have talking points to campaign on.
But I mean, I don't think there's a there there. And I think they know this as well. This has to go poorly and for them to have that talking point. There was no version of this happening that didn't go poorly on some level. And they knew that, which is why they didn't do it. And then what are they going to be dealing with next spring? We're not in Afghanistan. Everything, as bad as stuff is happening and as terrible as the deaths of our soldiers are, and it is heartbreaking, after we leave, there's going to be a lot of terrible things that happen in Afghanistan between the Taliban and ISIS and different groups and the like. And there will be, you know, military strikes we have to do, but we will not be a part of them materially. We won't have boots on the ground doing it. All of those things, the American public, if they're informed of it at all by the media, will all be going, well, at least we're not in the middle of it. That will always be the haunting thought that will be around in all this, no matter how hard the Republican Party tries to work at hanging this around Biden's head all the way into 2022 and 2024. Isn't going to happen. It is not. And all their cries to impeach him and all that kind of stuff, it's absurd. We got to take a break. I rode right past the break. Look at that chit-chattiness that I have.
And the chat is mostly about ivermectin and the fact that you can put ice in your coffee and just have iced coffee.
Yes, which is true. So during the break, I will run and get my coffee cup, and Johnny Million will entertain you. During it happens with weird hand noises. We'll be back right after this. It's the House Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide, on WCPT Radio, Chicago's Progressive Talk. Johnny Million is a talented mother. I'll be right back.
Hell, don't forget your coffee. Bob eggs. All right, I'm looking at the chat, everybody. There he goes. All right, guitar. Here's your guitar. It's not plugged in. But this is my Telecaster. Oops. I get 5 eggs. Are you back? Aww. I hear him. He's back. Yeah, it's tuned down a whole step, Prof.
Oh, nice.
Play the Who. How does that go?
He's got the squeetar out.
Johnny,
can't explain.
The calf is in good shape. That's good to hear.
The what?
My calf. The calf named after me.
Oh, yeah.
There's so many eggs in the chat.
Oh, 5 eggs.
5 eggs, 5 coffee cups.
5 eggs.
A few cat heads.
5 eggs in a month. 5 eggs.
So I hope everybody had a big breakfast this morning.
5 eggs.
What?
Free health care for illegal.
Look. Look.
So here's my. Can you see that? Sorry.
Oh, almost. It's blank. Oh, what is that?
It's coffee or die. It's the old revolutionary like
free or die?
snake. Yeah, no, that's the Gadsden flag. This is the join or die part of the colonies, the original colonies, the chopped up snake.
It's a snake.
You knew I was a snake when you decided to take me as a pet and put me in a little thing, put the light on top of it, and maybe build a terrarium kind of situation.
Coming back in 20.
Is that's not how the story goes? That's not it?
No, that's about right.
No, that's right.
You're a missile.
All right.
5 eggs.
That's right. Everybody have a big breakfast. Still got the tagger on it on the bottom. I just noted that when I had a sip of coffee. I know I'm only on 1 day a week. I get it. I'm going to have to jump on GarageBand and start sawing something together. This is the Hal Sparks Show. Wow. And a guitar note, and then progressive, and all that. Yeah, it's going to be good.
Hey, Hal, did you mean something like this?
This is the Hal Sparks Show. Wow. And a guitar note, and then progressive, and all that. Yeah, it's going to be good.
The Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
Yeah, it's going to be good.
5 eggs.
That's right.
5 eggs in a month.
Welcome back.
5 eggs.
I hope everybody had a big breakfast on what we call a diamond and silk breakfast around here.
5 eggs.
All right, so what we have, I have to say, I am in the process, by the way, of making a 5 eggs T-shirt for the merch store. I've killed a couple of versions. I mean, I don't want it to just be the 5 egg emojis across the too simple. It deserves a little more than that, right?
There's a certain charm to it.
There is, I have to say, right. I will make a version that's that way for you, Johnny Million, at the very least. I'm gonna send you a merch bundle. We have to, so you can have something to wear every day. But that you don't have something that shows that you do 5Ks and 10Ks for the local food bank.
That's right.
Because you're a good man, Johnny Million, and it's why I love you. One of the reasons that, and you know where all the bodies are buried from high school, so I have to kind of play nice with you. Now, a little more magic from.
We both have each other's back.
That's true, right? A little more logistical magic from Kevin McCarthy.
President, you and others this morning have been criticizing these reports and the president confirming last night that the U.S. gave the Taliban information. If the U.S. was trying to get Americans through Taliban checkpoints, how else were they supposed to do that without giving the Taliban information about people who needed to get through those checkpoints? What other option did the U.S. military have?
You know what's interesting? Here's an administration that said they do not trust the Taliban, but they turn around and say they depend on them. Why?
By the way, that is precisely what the Trump administration did when they made that deal last year, when they trusted the Taliban so much and relied on them so much that they broke the leader out of jail in Pakistan. The Trump administration got Baradar out of jail in Pakistan to negotiate the deal between the U.S. and the Taliban. And we're playing trust games.
Never depend on the Taliban. Why wouldn't we kept Bagram to start out with?
Because we're leaving. And because the last people that we're pulling out are the military that will protect the civilians as we go. And we're not just going to leave military on bases to be attacked while we get out the last remaining people in one city, in Kabul.
Why wouldn't we, if we ended up in that air base, why wouldn't we have pushed it back out, created enough military troops to create safe passage? Why would you?
Because we didn't want even more suicide bombings to kill even more troops. That's why.
With the Taliban. There are reports now, I read yesterday, that don't know if it's true or not, that we were
but don't let that stop you from saying it, please.
Well, yeah, just go ahead and say
That's amazing to me. I don't know if it's true or not, but apparently horse paste tastes like sour apple.
Intel information since April with them? These are all questions that need to be answered. That's why.
Yeah, intel information. Like, this is the road that people are going to come to the airport on, and this is the road we expect them to get safe passage through, or we're going to cause trouble for you in the rest of the country where the rest of your bases are. And we're still going to leave, but then we're just going to dust bomb everybody you know. Like that kind of warning, the kind of stuff that military says on their way out. P.S. You know what the name of the road is that goes from the U.S. Embassy and the Embassy Row to the airport in Kabul? Johnny, do you know what the name of that road is?
Tobacco Road?
No. Although an excellent DLR reference. You get two more guesses. Not Tobacco Road. What's the name for the road that takes? And you can check the chat because they know, because I told them yesterday.
Let me go back to the chat. Help me, chat.
There you go. Here it comes. It's good. It's good.
The road to hell?
Nope.
Airport Road?
Airport Road. The road from the U.S. Embassy.
Is reading my mind.
Yes.
The road to Ipanema.
The road that would take you from the U.S. Embassy, where all of our remaining civilian support staff and everybody is, and the surrounding area where they live in the narrow corridor around that, and the airport is Airport Road. And it's a quarter mile from the embassy to the airport. Now, Kevin McCarthy's brilliant idea is, rather than work with the Taliban and the people who are there to secure the ground and the road between the airport and the embassy, which is a quarter of a mile, what Kevin McCarthy and his ilk are saying is, wouldn't it be safer if everyone in the embassy had to travel an hour and 19 minutes on open road through the, by the way, you have to go completely through the city. And then it's another hour through the desert to Bagram Air Force Base and leave from there, all while we maintain the security of Bagram Air Force Base and secure 59 kilometers of road while ISIS and the Taliban are fighting each other. And the Taliban is taking over the territory. Now, who in the world thinks that the best escape route is the longest escape route? Who? I mean, this is goofy. And what they're counting on is that no one knows this. What they're counting on is that no one in the United States find out that Bagram Air Force Base is an hour and 19 minutes away through dangerous territory, especially when you've got Taliban fighters who are like, oh my God, military trucks. That must mean the military is breaking the deal, therefore open fire, right? We got to secure that road. Those are American soldiers with American guns out on the road. Therefore, deal must be over. I'm sure Kevin McCarthy and the Republicans operate on the idea that everybody there has the most amazing communication system in the world, but it's a game of Taliban telephone that's barely holding this thing together, and that's a way better plan than getting everyone a quarter of a mile to the airport that you can secure and getting them there, and that ISIS suicide bombers have hit this area once, but they wouldn't have hit an hour and 19-minute drive at all. Not to mention the gates at the actual base. Not to mention the edge of the actual city. Not to mention the embassy where everybody is just exiting from and going the opposite way from the airport, where they have a functioning landing strip and then get people out. And it's big enough and long enough, because it's for commercial airlines, that you can get giant commercial airplanes and military airplanes in and out.
Call last night, we have 3 committees: Foreign Affairs, HASC, and Intel. What Adam Schiff has done for the last 3.5 years.
By the way, his name is Schiff, not Shift. Is what?
Has failed as a chairman. Has failed this nation of what he should have been looking at.
Oh yeah? I'm sorry. What he should have been looking at? I'm sorry. Were they not the people who supported the president that's now in the office that's getting us actually out?
Nunes is looking into this, and these are questions we should have
Devin
answered.
Nunes is looking into this. He's convinced that the Taliban is in league with Devin Nunes's cow on Twitter.
This is a report that came out. Let's find exactly. The president couldn't answer the question with certitude. But at no given time should we provide to our enemy, to a terrorist organization, these are American names, we want to come into the airport. Why, when we're having other nations, our allies, going out and picking up their citizens, why wouldn't we have created a situation of...
Because they had a couple of hundred and we had tens of thousands. And we had a deal that your president struck that they wouldn't fire on us and we wouldn't fire on them. And the minute we had soldiers lining up enough to secure tens of thousands of people to go extract them when they were already making it to the airport on their own. Because as much as you've heard this thing about the U.S. soldiers and the Afghans that were killed, there's so far no reports that I know of that there were no American citizens in any of that. Right? I mean, we have not heard reports that there were any even from Republicans who tried to fly there in the middle of this, land on the tarmac and interrupt the process. The last time they did it, we had one Democrat and one Republican decide to fly in there, fly in there for oversight. And everybody's like, what shut down the runway for 3 to 5 hours? Them. That's what shut it down. Because once you get two elected officials landing in an evacuation zone, all the security goes to making sure that they don't get killed. And by the way, there was another airplane full of Republicans that tried to land, a private jet. They tried to come in right before the bomb went off. Who wants to guess they were in the process of pulling security from that detail to secure the airplane full of Republican congresspeople that was going to land? And there were fewer people at the gate because of that. And then because the bomb went off, they had to turn that plane around and send them back.
Safe passage. Why would the President of the United States go on television and tell all the Americans there it's safe to go to the airport?
Because first of all, he didn't say it's safe to go to the airport. He said, go to the airport. We will get you out. Not, it's safe. He didn't say skip, take your time, have a coffee, simmer down, set up camp outside the airport. Nobody ever said it was safe. No one has even had the illusion. It's Afghanistan. We're leaving. No one thinks this is safe. But the system was in place for you to get there. So get there. And don't dilly-dally, because come August 31st, we're out. And then it gets really unsafe. We got to take a break. We'll be back right after this. The cartoonish level that these guys are going to try and pretend Trump's deal didn't exist and defend and offend the United States military, the State Department, and the administration just to score political points is pitiful, considering you're not going to weigh 20 years of not getting out against 3 months of getting out, of actively starting to remove people. The deaths involved in getting out are part of the deaths of being there as long as we have been. We'll be back right after this. It's the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide on WCPT Radio, Chicago's Progressive Talk. 773-763-9278 is our number. Just gross.
He makes me mad.
Oh, I mean, if he mattered, I would be worried, but he frankly does not. He frankly does not.
Really bad.
Yeah, I mean, even his own caucus hates him. They expect him to turn on him. He's going to have to testify in the January 6th thing. It's going to freak everybody out. He'll do it behind closed doors. It's going to be a big fight. And and if he has to tell the truth, it won't look good for Trump, so everybody hates him, and he's got to defend. That's one of the reasons why he's out there in front of everything, kind of crap-talking Biden and talking up Trump, is because he knows eventually he's going to have to tell the truth about Trump, and he's got to weigh that against what else he said. You know?
And yet somehow these people manage to sleep.
Well, yeah, I mean, sociopaths snore. It's a commonly known fact. I posted earlier, does anybody mind if I tell those folks that ivermectin horse paste has a chemical in it that you can see with drones so you can find lost sheep and cattle? I'm naughty. 829 people in the chat. Oh my God. Everybody don't forget to give a thumbs up. It's right down there. It's just right down there. You could just click the thumbs up. Or if you're a troll, don't forget to give us a thumbs down. Yeah.
Smashed the like.
Thank you. There you go. Even Johnny smashed the like. Is that what you said?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well,
that's what I just typed.
You self-involved bastard. If I do say so myself. But yeah,
that's right. I like things that say, Al Sparks.
Right. We will be back in just 1 second. Boom, 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 boom.
We're back in 20.
Thank you. Yeah, there are no thumbs in the Twitch chat. You just have to send emojis and do the hype trains. They want you active. Oh my God. Did you hear that Chenk's his cousin or his little brother or whatever, his nephew?
This is Damian Purdue
I'll tell you
of
about
Think
later.
Theory Radio, Saturdays at 6 p.m. You're listening to Hal Sparks' radio program, Mega Worldwide.
I thought there was going to be like a new one every break. I was so excited.
You want more, Hal? We'll give you more. Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide on Chicago's Progressive Talk, WCPT 820. Hoo-yah!
See, that's yes. That's the kind of attitude. That's the kind of can-do attitude we like around here. That kind of a liner gets. I'm just saying, we're giving that a 5 eggs. Clearly, that deserves 5 eggs up, over easy. So, we have talked a bit about the massive Republican failures in terms of ISIS and the ISIS-K and Afghanistan, and we're going to leave, but we're going to, I keep expecting, right before every Republican speaks, I feel like there should be this, now, brick, inside music joke. But it seems to be the same feeling that they have about everything. This idea that we should leave Afghanistan, but stay. We should get our people out and our bases out and everything out, but stay and keep Bagram. We shouldn't negotiate with the Taliban except when Trump negotiated with the Taliban. And we shouldn't set a date for our withdrawal except when Trump set a date for our withdrawal. And we shouldn't extend that date capriciously until we extend that date, to make sure some of our Afghan allies get out safely. We should get out every American, including the ones who don't want to leave. I don't know how that plan works. And we should do it by sending the military out into the streets with guns and tanks and Delta Force, Chuck Norris style, karate chopping their way through the streets to get Americans with dual citizenship possibly involved in the poppy trade that don't want to leave, so that they can be brought home safely to organize an opium trade here in America. America first business practices.
He doesn't love a poppy.
Yeah. So it should be no surprise that their attitude towards the Taliban is almost identical to their attitude towards COVID.
Yeah.
You shouldn't negotiate with it. You shouldn't let it run wild. You should attack it with everything you got, except not. And in the right now, Greg Abbott, the governor of Texas, who is currently, I think he finally tested negative rather, after 4 days. By the way, big love to Paul Stanley, who is vaccinated but got a breakthrough case and is weathering it well as just, kind of flu-ish symptoms. He's doing all right. We love him, but they had
the whole crew, the band, even Gene Simmons, who was a Fox News alum, is speaking out against politics involved and said, follow the science.
Yep.
Everybody's got both vaccines.
Yep. Which is why, you're allowed to have, that's why we can speak across the aisle to some people. Just because parts of their groups are lunatics does not mean you can't engage with the ones that aren't. That's my point. So
right. I think we both said this before. I miss real Republicans.
Mm-hmm. Right.
You can talk to them and negotiate as long as, everybody was getting something. Like compromise existed.
Yeah. And it had to, because we have a democracy, not a vacillating dictatorship, which is not the goal. Never has been. So Abbott is deploying 2,500 out-of-state medical staff, also known as calling for help, to deal with their COVID surge right now because of the Delta variant through the state. They requested external assistance 2 weeks ago when Abbott announced that 2,500 out-of-state medical workers were needed to respond to the Delta variant. COVID patients are now taking up more than half of all intensive care beds in Texas as of Thursday, compared with 30% nationwide, according to the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. Let's see. The medical personnel and equipment deployed by DSHS will provide crucial support to our healthcare facilities as they treat hospitalized cases of COVID-19. Alabama's health officer says, and I quote, I don't know how much longer we're going to be able to do this. They are, he gave his COVID-19 update, and basically he started breaking down. And then in California, where we've got this recall election going on, by the way, vote no if you're within the sound of my voice and that election applies to you in any ways. I did. And the top running Republican right now, Larry Elder, is going to be charged with domestic abuse by his ex-wife. That charges are now filed, which I think is how you determine a Republican frontrunner, if I'm not mistaken. You cannot be a Republican frontrunner in any race unless you have a current domestic abuse charge or several charges of sexual assault. It's just, do you even MAGA, bro? You need that. That's part of your bona fides. Remember, they used to be the pro-life family values crowd, but right now, one of the things that might affect materially, statistically significantly, the recall election and the choice to kind of toss Gavin Newsom out of office and replace him with a Republican that can get only 6% of the vote, couldn't be elected to statewide office in a real election. Those folks statistically are losing voters left and right, not because they're giving up on voting because Donald Trump told them to, which is also a significantly large number of folks. No. That's because mortuaries are filling up and hospitals are clogged in rural California towns with low vaccination rates. In Crescent City, California, the mortuary is filled beyond capacity and needs a refrigerator truck to hold bodies. Pro-life family values. The small hospital is so full that it is lining up helicopters to fly COVID patients out of remote Del Norte County. So many employees are out with coronavirus infections that businesses have closed. Not because they're worried about the spread, but because the business owners themselves are currently sick with COVID. Can't come into work. Not, oh, I'm worried I don't want to spread it. They don't care about that. They can't get out of bed. They're having trouble breathing. They'd be in the hospital, but there's no room for them. So they're convalescing at home until they die at home. And someone goes, well, they would have died of something anyways. You got to die of something. We'll be back right after this news break. It's the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide on WCPT Radio, Chicago's Progressive Talk. Yeah. Rural California is getting its ass handed to it. And it is horrifying. Yeah. Hold on, I'm pulling something up. Come on, LA Times. Open up your rat. What's wrong with you?
I need to pause for a moment, Hal.
All right. I'll give you a second. There you go. Hi, everybody. Welcome. What's going on, chat? Good to see you. I got to put up I have to create a chat window version of things. I don't currently have one, and you deserve one. So that's next on my list. But Hassan just bought a $2.4 million or $2.7 million house in LA after Jimmy Dore bought a $1.2 million house. The online Marxists are either very disappointing or I just have no idea what Marxism is anymore. So, yeah. Well, apparently there's a new one. There's a new house. I just walked out of the room and Johnny's gone. He'll be back in a second. He's got to see a man about a mule. Oh, confirming the monetary value, right. Oh, well, I mean, Cenk's a millionaire. No question. Staff can't unionize. By the way, if and when the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide, or any of its subsidiaries, when I become a giant corporation or get $20 million in venture capital funding, if anytime my staff wants to unionize, cool. I'm just going on the record right now. I honestly don't feel like they would have to, which is kind of the shitty part. You should actually be at a point in this kind of situation where they don't feel the need to unionize. You know what I mean? If you were like this, yeah, we would unionize, but, there's profit sharing. We're working on, we feel like we're respected as workers, We'd love to unionize and drive Hal out of business, but we like him so much and he treats us so well. Oh, Johnny's back. Hold on. Guess who's back? Johnny's back.
Johnny back.
Yeah, will it be worker owned? No, of course not. But then I'm not operating on the illusion that I'm running a socialist or Marxist organization. And largely not because people who are consider themselves socialists and Marxists often don't mean well, but because I don't subscribe to any economic theory that was designed before there were when there was less than 1.2 billion people on the earth. Yeah, it just doesn't apply. None of it applies. Even when people say capitalism now, the evil capitalism we talk about most of the time is resource capitalism. Oil in the ground, you're doing terrible things to get it out of the ground. Once it's gone, it's burned. You're making yourself rich and you're the only person who has access to it. The minute the idea industry is as lucrative as the material industry, like steel and oil and all that kind of stuff, which it far outpaces most of the time. Ask any of these like millionaire kids from the App Store. The game has changed. It's a totally socialism is greater than capitalism, slavery. Yeah, like that even conversation about it. I appreciate you mean well, but it means nothing. These days, it's not the same thing. I mean, even Amazon, as much as they don't pay their fair share of taxes, started out as an online bookstore and are a service where everybody involved pays taxes, and everybody, like, they should pay more in taxes. They absolutely should pay off of that profit. But to pretend that they're like oil, where you can't do anything without them, is a little silly. It's not the same thing. It just isn't, right? It doesn't mean they shouldn't be taxed, at an appropriate level, and that they actually pay. Rich folks need to pay taxes, period. Agreed. We have disaster capitalism now. No, not in a practical sense. I mean, our two biggest, most damaging capitalist industries are both petroleum based. Energy and plastics.
You're listening to the Hal Sparks
When coal magnates are dying of black lung, it's not the same economy we had in the 1800s. Just isn't.
I don't care for you or for the putrid sludge you're troweling out.
Plus face little pimp stick.
True progressive talk.
Might be a good time for you guys to give up.
In the break, we started having a great conversation about the politics of economics, and my feeling is that most of the discussions that we've been having about economics over the last 10 years even don't actually apply to the material reality we all live in now. Because when concepts of capitalism and Marxism and socialism and those kind of things were created, there was less than 1.5 billion people on the earth, and all economies were resource economies. Limited amounts of stuff, meaning oil or food, and land for arable land for farming. And some people had it and some people didn't. Now that you have an idea economy that drives a good portion of the world, or even the economic world building money in and of itself, from the evils of credit default swaps to the positives of lower middle class people can invest through Robinhood into and grow their money like robber barons 100 years ago could do, but no one else had access to. There's a different conversation that needs to be had about economics, and I think it's worth having. And I love that the second I bring it up, our chat room comes alive with discussions about it, and it's a great thing. Period. It's awesome, because that's how it should go. Yeah, let's get rid of robber barons for good. Somebody said we don't have any, really. We really don't. We don't. Robber barons were pre-stock market in a lot of ways. They were single. Trump is a robber baron, I think, is the closest thing to a robber baron that we know of and interact with in these days. Small family business, not publicly traded, avoids taxes and all kinds of stuff by being part of an industry overall, the New York real estate market, which is rife with corruption. And it's so corrupt that everybody's afraid to go after any of the corruption for the sake of the whole thing falling apart. Trump thinks he's a protected class in the world because somehow he's escaped all of this scrutiny, as if it's personal, as if everybody's afraid to go after him. And the reality is they're just afraid to go after anybody in the New York real estate market, because the minute you do, it's so mobbed up and gacked up with Chinese and Russian money and shady Saudi deals that if you start pulling that thread, the whole sweater comes apart. And New York winters are cold. Just say it. So we were talking about this. The Alabama health officer is saying, I don't know how much longer they can hold out. And we have reports now of there was a story about doctors walking out because they were sick of unvaccinated people clogging up the things and wearing them out. Those doctors, for the record, did not walk out. They made a stand. They were protesting during their breaks in their shift. So they went right back to treating unvaccinated COVID people after coming out. And giving statements about how horribly they're being treated and and the horrible situation that they are going through. So increasingly, you're seeing nurses as well who are walking off the job or quitting or simply collapsing from exhaustion because the Delta variant is surging through areas where people took no precautions. Now, one of the things people forget, it seems, that Trump was wandering around going, we got 14 cases, it's going to soon go to 0, right? That was the whole story. We got 14 cases, and he didn't even want to bring a cruise ship full of with 68 Americans on it to port because he knew he would have to offload those 68 Americans, and that would add 68 people to his number of cases in the country. Not dead. These weren't corpses. He didn't want to add 68 to his number of 14. So he was stiff-arming Americans trapped on a boat as the disease spread, who may or may not have, by the way, had it, who were stuck there as they got it, right? So, and then what did that lead to? That led to millions of cases and over 600,000 deaths in the United States. 14 led to 600,000. The Delta variant is more virulent, can break through with thank God, non-hospitalizing infections, but can break through and make people ill and spread the virus to people who aren't vaccinated or who aren't taking precautions. And there was one upside to the death count last year, is that largely people who were at all concerned about their breathing, their oxygen levels, or any of that kind of stuff were rushing to the hospital and getting treated. And as hard as it was to treat them, and as how limited the treatments were, they still could. And some people were in the hospital for a short time, never needed to be intubated, and were released. The problem they have with the Delta variant, and where it's striking right now, is that you have a tremendous number of Republicans who don't believe it's real, didn't take any precautions, aren't vaccinated, won't wear masks. They get sick. They think it's nothing. They think it was a hoax. And then they wait until their lungs are nearly shut down before they ever go to the hospital, when it is too late. So to the folks who don't believe in science and don't believe the doctors and don't believe in vaccines, who are rushing straight to the hospital as soon as they can't breathe anymore, tell you what, rush a little sooner. Get yourself checked out. And so I had a friend, he's not one of my brightest friends, but who got COVID and was was a vaccine holdout. And not a denier, but a wait and seer, right? And yeah, right, in quotes. Roommate of his got COVID. He decides, oh crap, I better get vaccinated. The day that the other guy comes home sick, breathing all over him, saying I'm sick. So he goes and gets the vaccine. He sets up an appointment, super easy, right away.
Yeah.
Races to the CVS, gets a shot of Pfizer. The very next day, sick as a dog because he'd caught COVID. And the vaccine is not a prophylactic that operates that way. It's not the morning after pill for COVID. And over the course of 2 weeks, he went up and down with it. First, it's like the flu a little bit, and then, wow, I'm fine for a whole day. And then, bam, harder. And then about 5 days of, wow, this is the worst flu I've ever had. And then, hey, I'm better. And then, oh my God, I don't think I can breathe. Steaming every day, trying to breathe, dry cough because it's, and while he's telling me this story, he's like, he's not coughing up anything and it's not green, so it's not pneumonia. I'm like, it's COVID. Your lungs are shutting, dum-dum. That's from the swelling. It's a dry cough because there's nothing in there to cough out. That's your own tissue. That's your lungs swelling shut. And, luckily, this guy was healthier than most, goes to the gym, and didn't have any kind of surprise comorbidities that made it turn south. But he was this close and was well past the point where the hospital would have helped if it had taken a turn for the worse. If he'd have gone to the hospital because he just got to that point where he couldn't breathe at all from the exhaustion of not being able to breathe, which is what happens. It's like drowning people. They just don't have the strength anymore, and all they do is sink. You're at a certain point, you only have limited energy. Your lungs can only expand and contract so many times. And if the work is too much and the exchange becomes too bad, where, it's taking 1,800 calories to lift your fork to your face, but your meal only has 800 calories per bite, eventually there's an overlap. There's a return on investment that fails. And that's what happens to a lot of these folks. And then they get pneumonia, viral pneumonia on top of it. And then they're gone. Then they tube them, they try to drain stuff out, but it's really a matter of just watching their lungs swell up as their lungs start to react to the fighting off COVID, and now there's pneumonia. So your immune system overreacts initially to the COVID and then tries to fight pneumonia at the same time. That's how it goes. And then you're dead. Then you can slowly but surely drown in your own lungs. And it's horrifying that this is how hundreds of people are dying. And in these rural towns in California, which are the only parts of California that are having any, material failures of the COVID response, because they are choosing not to be involved in the COVID response. And so every blame about why we keep having to vacillate through lockdowns and why we have to put masks on to save the MAGA folk from themselves, because if any of us are carrying it but have been vaccinated and we can expel the virus, but we don't, we don't fear having to go to the hospital, but we don't want to give it to people who aren't vaccinated. So we're protecting them in a way that they're not willing to protect themselves. That's Gavin Newsom's fault. That's why we need a recall. Meanwhile, who's dying in these rooms? People who signed the recall petition, that's who. People who are voting for Larry Elder or wanted to before they were intubated. It's heartbreaking. No one should have to die in this country simply because you're an idiot. And I do not and will not celebrate the Darwinistic deaths of these folks, and I will not wish greater illness on any of them. Because the ones that do recover and recognize that they were telling themselves a lie can be some of the best advocates for saving other lives before it's too late. And everyone around them isn't necessarily 100% on board with their BS as they bring this disease home. That and wishing that on anyone also wishes that, by hook or by crook, the tangential deaths that will be caused by it. So no, always no. You're not going to hear it from me. You're not going to hear me welcoming it. We got to take a break. We'll be back right after this. 773-763-9278. So gross. I mean, I know that there were anti-maskers during the Spanish flu, and it was why we had multiple waves, and it's what killed a lot of people. And a lot of them were the same people, religious zealots, people who thought the end of the world was coming. We wouldn't be able to hasten it. You can't, the only thing you can do to help God with the end of the world is help him bring it sooner. Play your part in the end times, right? There was plenty of that. There always has been. And it's not just us. I mean, ISIS is an end times cult. They are at their root, while the Taliban calls themselves students and sort of Puritans. They are the hyper Amish of the Afghanistan world. They are very observant, and that observant part goes into the grotesque. ISIS are end timers. Not only is Allah going to bring about the end of the world, but on my watch pretty soon, and I need to help. which is what, evangelical Christians have leaned towards over the last few years. Look at the Left Behind movies. They're all based on the premise that God, forgot a bunch of good Christians behind because he's just missed it. He whiffed it. And that those Christians now have a mission.
He was pretty cool. I can't believe I forgot about him.
Who? What? Oh yeah, right.
Bill.
Yeah, Kirk Cameron. How did I forget about him? He's a sweetie. Right? God forgot them on earth, but now they've got a new mission, which is to help to kill the Antichrist, because that's what really the end times are about. So they're part of the the tribulation force and all that stuff. This is all those books are based on. End of the world shit.
Back in 20.
Thank you. Do we have callers, by the way?
Just give me a moment to screen them. I just opened the lines.
Okay, excellent. I don't think Kirk Cameron is insane. I think Kirk Cameron is dumb. That's, it's not insanity. He's dumb. He's a dumb person. He can tie his shoes. He's not insane.
Stop what you're doing. Because we're coming back to the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
They went a little crazy with it, and I appreciate it.
So Trump
now let's get back with Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
Sorry, I get so excited. These bumpers are so long, they're half the show now.
5 eggs.
I just don't know why. Well, why we can't. I always feel like I'm almost there, and I need to jump. Is it time to?
5 eggs in a month.
I don't know when it ends. I couldn't.
Transvestites.
So here we are. We're back, and we'll be taking your calls in just a moment. 773-763-9278. So Trump is making the rounds, making calls to all the radio guys. He won't appear on camera except in his weird little message that he gave to the soldiers, which was, if I would have been president, I'd have done this way better, but, I was cheated out of the election, so sorry. That's, it's basically a promo video, which, by the way, he didn't forget to watermark with his fundraiser in the corner of the video. So I think, points for branding, which is, to paraphrase Steve Martin, branding is the idiot's version of being interesting. Trump called into Sebastian Gorka's show and floated this whole idea that we keep Bagram. We got to keep Bagram Air Force Base. We'll get out. We'll get all of our stuff out, all of our soldiers out, every nut and bolt of every piece of gear, but keep an entire Air Force Base, I guess, stocked with the ghosts of the dead and invisible aircraft from the Wonder Woman collection. I don't know how you leave and stay at the same time, but no one seems to care. So all Sebastian Gorka did was, as he always does when Trump is talking, nod and sort of develop a single tear in his eye that Papa is talking to him, and and telling him to go get the paper, boy. Papa believes in you. And I don't mean go get the paper. I mean go get the paper, boy. It's a long story. Anyways, so he calls into Hugh Hewitt's show, and Trump said, "I spoke to and sort of the known head, but nobody was sure. But now I'm sure." And I was sure that when I was speaking to him, I knew as soon as I spoke to him, and even in the introduction, I say hello, and he screamed something very tough. If I am reading this right, Trump, he was talking about Baradar. That's the sentence. I spoke to and sort of the known head, but nobody was sure, but now I'm sure, and I was sure then when I was speaking to him. I knew as soon as I spoke to him, and even the introduction, I say hello, and he screamed something very tough. Trump said, and then he asked me one question, and I'd rather not repeat the question because it's a very scary question. But he asked me one question, and I gave him the answer, yes. Well, what was the question? You can't
Will
just
you help me end the world?
Right. Are you're not gonna hurt me, are you? Yes. Like, what is the question? A very scary question. And I'd rather not tell you because it's a very scary question.
My guess is, are you willing to do X, Y, Z horrible things?
Yes, absolutely. Are you willing to abandon women and children so that we can do whatever we want with them just to get your soldiers out? And Trump's answer was yes. I think you're absolutely right in the ballpark. Why would the question, this is worth talking about. If he won't mention conjecture in this is worthwhile. What would that question be? That's a very scary question that he yelled something very tough and then asked something very scary. And then Trump finished clutching his pearls and said, yes. I seriously. Then he asked me one question. I'd rather not repeat that question because it's a very scary question. But he asked me one question and I gave him the answer yes. Gibberish. From a geopolitical standpoint, from a leadership standpoint, I'm the leader of the...
Anybody read anything, any transcript, it is maddening to try to keep up.
Imagine reading Trump statements written out like...
Free health care for illegal... look.
Or...
the Burmese executives. So these Burmese, they say... Pronounce it Burmese. Michigan gave us Motang.
Once it was reluctantly aroused. It was hard to get it aroused, and it is hard to get it aroused, but we got it aroused.
We're going to be appointing very pro-crime judges.
I don't remember seeing transcripts in the news. Did anybody bother to write those things out? I don't know how you spell illegal. Look. Somebody in the chat will try, I have no doubt. But, and then he asked me one question. I'd rather not repeat that question because it's a very scary question, but he asked me one question and I gave him the answer, yes. Hey, you know what? The first time somebody asks you to marry them, it's scary. It's unnerving.
Are you a virgin?
Yeah, are you a virgin? Right.
A virgin.
There is no reason, let's see where I wanted to be out by May 1. I had spoken to him quite a bit before May 1, but we had a condition of May 1, but they missed conditions, and so therefore I bombed and we hit them very hard, Trump recalled. There was, can I just say this unequivocally? There was no point where the conditions would be met. If indeed the conditions Trump says existed, there is no circumstance where they can be met. Because in the case of no Al-Qaeda in the country, you have to prove a negative before we leave. You have to prove to me there's no Al-Qaeda there. And I don't know, what do? Line everybody up and go, everybody who's not in Al-Qaeda, take one step forward, like not so fast, Abdul, right? Is that the idea? There is no way the conditions that Trump supposedly set forward in there could have been met. And therefore he was never going to get out. Never. And it's farcical to believe he was going to. And it's also farcical to believe that he had some sort of a strategy when he's saying things like, I spoke to and I sort of know, and sort of the known head, but nobody was sure, but now I'm sure, and I was sure then when I was speaking to him, and I knew as soon as I spoke to him, and even the introduction, I said hello, and he screamed something very tough. That person who said that, who uttered that, whatever that was, is the person that had a plan. He can't tell you what it was, but he had a plan.
Oh, no.
He had a plan. It was such a good plan. It was the perfect plan. And if only if only the rigged election hadn't been stolen from him by stolen from the leader of the free world by 8 volunteers and the Democratic Party, who apparently are snowflakes who don't know, couldn't find their rectum with both hands in a search party, but somehow also control the government, all branches of government, have control of the puppet strings that control Brett Kavanaugh and others in the Supreme Court, except when they don't. Run big tech and big corporations, big woke corporations, of course, who are all woke now because they want diversity in their workforce, which sounds very woke. Or it might just be that they want the best workers, and some workers were self-selecting out because they thought maybe the company wouldn't want them because of their skin color.
Like profits.
Right, exactly. Yeah, you don't actually think Target started being like having more full-figured models in their ads and mannequins in their stores because they care about health. It's because 60% of the American public is overweight or obese, and that's the audience. You are selling to them now. It's not because you've come to Jesus and had this moment that people should be accepted. That's absurd. Same thing, like, but anyways, I get off, I digress. But the Democrats who can't run anything are weak on crime, weak against international terror, can't, is like herding cats, but they always stick together, and they own big tech and big corporations, big woke corporations, and the entire government. But and those folks stole the election from a guy who was the best at everything and knew ISIS better than the generals, knew taxes better than the IRS, apparently not, and knew more about America than it, and it would only hire the best people. That's right. I forgot about that. I forgot about he would only hire the best people who all sucked, were probably Democrats, and only got him coffee when they went to jail, quit, or started talking against him. We got to take a break. When we come back, so many of Trump's
might have a caller.
Oh, that's possible. Let's find out. We'll be back. Good Lord.
Yes, we have callers.
Okay, great.
Woo, doggy.
Oh, I see. I do have a happy ending, which is pretty hilarious.
Oh yay!
I will. Let me see if I can send you. Let me copy the thing, and I'll see if
Skype thing.
Yeah, I'll send it to you in the chat over there. I have to clip you out for a second. Hold on. There you. Whoops. Sorry. 2, 1. There we go. Sorry. There we go. Send it here. There you go. No. It's pretty cool. It's I just want to keep it a bit of a secret until we get there.
Okay.
Especially, you know how I'm a big fan of paragraph 3. In this case, it is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's paragraph 7. Because they cut it into pieces anyways. They always take, like, they separate paragraphs now into smaller, more digestible chunks. It's the paragraph that starts with the word other.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Pretty fascinating.
Yeah.
Not necessarily something you'd think was possible 6 months ago.
No.
Yeah. I'm going to put these together with a couple of other, it'll be tech news kind of, because there's some cool stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
Back in 20.
It's usually good, happy stuff.
I
I know I'm only on 1 day a week. I get it. I'm gonna have to jump on GarageBand and start sawing something together. This is the Hal Sparks Show. Wow, and a guitar note, and then progressive and all. Yeah, it's gonna be good.
Hey, Hal, did you mean something like this?
This is the Hal Sparks Show. Wow, and a guitar note, and then progressive and all. Yeah, it's gonna be good.
The Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
Yeah, it's gonna be good.
We're just getting warmed up.
I know. And we got to take a break because we're out of time for this segment.
And that break just took us into the other break.
That's right. We got some callers on the line. Who do we have, Chicago?
Up first is Steve from the Gold Coast.
Oh, right on. Hold on.
Thank you for taking my call.
Absolutely,
hello.
Steve. Welcome.
Hello.
Glad you're here.
Great. Yes, thank you. Thank you for taking my call. And I wanted to offer up a hypothesis that I think strings together a couple of different things that you brought up here. And I think that part of the reactionary response that you're seeing from a lot of these Trump followers is a response to what we've seen that government can do, especially here in America in the midst of the COVID crisis. So we've seen that, government can actually take care of people and can help them pay their bills, can keep them housed and keep them fed during a crisis. And I think that they're scared to death, a certain cohort in this country, because it opens up the door to the possibility of what government can do for people.
Right.
And God forbid that after this is over, people should start to say, so you know what? I mean, is it really necessary that my wife and I should work 60, 70 hours a week to get by in America?
Right.
Never being able to take a vacation. Our kids go to, moderately decent schools. We're never going to be able to buy a home. All of these things are questions that Americans might start to ask themselves about the role of government, because we've got generations of people who grew up after the New Deal,
right?
And after those policies started to be eroded by the right, because they've been chipping away at that for decades.
Right.
And they simply grew up in an America where mom and dad, it was no big thing that dad worked 70 hours a week. There was a time when dad worked 40 hours a week.
Right.
And he actually made more money than what mom and dad make today as a combined salary.
There is I will argue that there is a resource availability aspect of where that work goes and and why people work for more stuff than they ever have before. And you can debate the value of, say, home computers, smart television sets, the Apple Watches, and the fact that your phone has more technology on it than sent us to Mars. That's one of the reasons why, and that's a choice, and that's cool. That's fine. But the bare subsistence level should be such that it doesn't require breaking your back to get there. That's, I think, where we go. Right. If you want to strive and earn more because that's what you want, more stuff, that should be an option, and not the absolute baseline.
Right, and that's a really good point, because all too often we get caught up in this discussion about the exploitation of the free market and capitalism in terms of what it does to labor. But the other side of that, and again, it gets short shrift, is that what that free market does in terms of incentivizing people to buy a lot of nonsense that, quite frankly, they don't need. How much of our lives do we spend working for a bunch of junk that we are convinced that we need, when really the only person that benefits are the people selling it to you? And in terms of your life, it really has very little value to the human condition.
Well, I think I will land soundly on the being a grown man who has far more than my fair share of action figures and vinyl records. I will land solely forever on, if you make it, you can spend it on whatever you want. And if you drive yourself crazy, earning money to, so that you can buy an increasingly impressive version of the Iron Man suit you can wear to Comic-Con every year, when it isn't materially changing the outcome of your overall life, but you do it because it brings that whole pursuit of happiness part, you're welcome to it. If you find yourself chasing the dollar for food, that's when the government has a part to play in stepping in. If you want to run yourself ragged for material comforts, if you're Elvis and your idea of what you do with all the money you make as Elvis Presley is a gold toilet, I don't understand it, but I won't stand between you and doing it. It's weird, but knock yourself out.
That goes back to.
Yeah.
Right, and that goes back to exactly what I was trying to point out.
Yeah.
And nobody's talking about government giving you a mansion and a choice between a Mercedes and a BMW. But we're talking about government keeping people alive.
Yeah.
Health care, education, decent housing. Nobody's buying you a mansion. And also, I think that you also raised a really good point, because I think we get stuck on that old definition, that sort of late 19th century definition of capitalism and the free market.
Right.
Because as you pointed out, you can become a billionaire. You and three buddies can come up with an app. Somebody will buy it, and you're a billionaire. You didn't exploit anybody. You didn't.
It came out of nowhere. It doesn't even need material resources to exist as a product. That was something completely unheard of. I mean, the only thing even close was books for a long time, because it was the idea within them, not the paper itself. But you still needed the material resource to do that. You can now write a book that is as big as the Encyclopedia Britannica, and it takes up no material space, and you can sell it for $1,000.99, and it is completely up to anybody who wants it and whoever wants to have access to it. It is totally different in our current living system, and what we should be concerned with, I think, from a governmental level, and I think what you're right about, your main point about the Republicans fearing, is that what if we give people who have been traditionally held back economically by the resource economy that was in control for a long time, and they somehow slingshot ahead with this new economy that doesn't require any resources. They get a computer, or they get broadband that they can get, and it's up to them to find their way to the better computer that allows them to do whatever. And they end up being, a streamer, or they end up, creating a program using the computers at school that they end up selling and making a living. And they never had to be born on oil or gold or diamonds. They can bypass the wealth, the old school wealth that was based on that resource economy, simply through their own ingenuity, something that was materially impossible before, because if you wanted to make millions of dollars publishing a book, you had to find somebody willing to cut down some trees, shave them into paper, and it's not how it works. I'm kidding, but and put it out for you, and make sure and truck it to stores.
Right, and the big unknown here going forward, and it's an important part of this discussion, is technology. Because what happens down the road? Because we all know what AI is. At least I hope people do. Mm-hmm. And then couple that with robotics and the advancements there. So what happens when you can grow all the food that you would need in a society without a human being ever having touched it until it gets to their mouth?
Wait till you start eating meat that never was alive. There are 3 companies, including an Israeli company and a California company, that are growing meat in petri dishes that will have the same mouthfeel as regular meat. You'll be able to sell it in supermarkets. Nobody will be the wiser, and it'll also be infused with vitamins. Won't affect the flavor. You'll have like super beef, and you'll be eating mammoth burgers, and it's gonna anything that have a tiger sausage. Nobody cares. It didn't come from a living tiger. It's that stuff is on the way. I'm dead serious, and it will require so much less to process that you won't have these giant cattle farms that produce methane. That you will have hydroponic fields that can recycle their own water.
And then right, exactly. And then the whole notion about, we're paying for other people. Well, what happens when things cost so little? And especially that, it's not as if there's some other guy doing the work so that you can eat and have a good time.
Right.
No, there's a machine doing it for next to nothing. So then the argument becomes, well, then who is it hurting if we provide a baseline of a subsistence in terms of, again, health care, education, food, housing, because we can produce basic housing, through all of this technology. It's not some guy over there killing himself 12 hours a day to build your house for you while you're enjoying life. No, it's machines doing it. So then why not be able to do it? But I think that a lot of people in this country are scared to death that is going to turn on its head the existing paradigm. And
well, that's because they come from largely those groups of people you're talking about come from a long line of people who made their wealth in the resource economy and don't believe in ideas and science on that level, can't get a grasp on it and fear that their control of the economy, their control of human beings' lives is slipping out of their hands. And that is there will be a shift coming. Like, I have, and it's interesting, Steve, that you are kind of dovetailing us into today's happy ending, because it relates to a lot of this, once we get to the next break. But I have a question for you though, because we kind of touched on this before, but when I filled in for Joan, but the idea that the resources in Afghanistan are not there to motivate anybody to stay in Afghanistan the way, oil in Iraq necessarily drove that conflict. And so the question is, why stay? Why are we there? And how do we best help? I mean to put you on the spot.
Exactly. And it's important to remember, because you pointed this out, and I think it was really insightful. Up until the last few decades, what was in Afghanistan, quite frankly, didn't interest anybody. Going back millennia, armies got to Afghanistan, the whole, it's the graveyard of empires. Oh, look, let's be a little bit more honest than that. People got there, as you said, and looked around and said, this isn't worth fighting for. This isn't Greece, for God's sakes. It's not Egypt. There are places in the world worth fighting for. This isn't one of them. But now, in the 21st century, there are elements and there are natural resources in Afghanistan that today have utility that were useless when the Soviets were in Afghanistan. Nobody cared, quite frankly. There wasn't that kind of demand. There wasn't a PC in everybody's home, and there wasn't a mobile phone and whatnot, and all of this technology that ran your home and your car and everything else.
Lithium.
Today, Afghanistan does have these things, and now there's a utility for extracting that. But you don't need to go to war to do it. People are kind of funny, no matter what religion or what ethnic background they are. They are incentivized by the idea of buying things from them that they have to sell you. And that's all that we need to do to change the physical conditions on the ground in Afghanistan. Extract what they have there. Let those people sell us what they have. Let them improve the quality of their life, and guess what? Social change will come. I'm not saying it's going to come overnight, but it's a heck of a lot better way to institute change than to bomb people into changing.
Right. Well, and also the unfortunate part for anybody who has that plan for Afghanistan is that we're about 2 years away. You're about a year and a half away from being able to get it out of the ground the way you want to in any kind of massive way out of Afghanistan, and about 2 years away from that those elements that you're seeking to get out of the ground being obsolete. Because that's the other problem. The same thing that's the same thing the Saudis are having with oil. Everybody tries to resuscitate oil prices like crazy, but the reality is the tipping point has come for electric vehicles for the vast majority of the people who are buying vehicles in the future, and we have literally crested that hill, and it is all downhill for consumers to use oil or gas from now on. It is going to be electric. Now, airplanes, they'll still need some, but minor usage.
Right, and the important thing is that unlike other industries, so if for instance people stop eating McDonald's tomorrow, great, you can turn it into a Starbucks, no problem. But a lot of these other industries, they invested in multi-billion-dollar endeavors. So when you have an offshore drilling rig that costs $20 billion, you need to recoup that, and you were hoping to do it over the next 30 years. Well, if you all of a sudden decide, that oil is not the way we're going to be going any longer, how do you recoup that?
Right.
You've got to maintain that oil paradigm in order to recoup that money. Otherwise, it's lost, because that was your idea.
We are about 6 years to 10 years away, depending on which countries get on board the fastest, to the international trade in wine in gallons and in availability and price overtaking oil permanently. That for like the amount of wine being shipped back and forth around the world will be higher than the amount of oil that is being shipped and processed for jet fuel and some other fuel sources.
And that's the conundrum that a lot of these countries face, because on the one hand, if you overproduce, it forces down the prices of oil. But if you decide to overproduce, then rather if you overproduce, it pushes down the price. If you underproduce, then they're afraid that 10 years from now you're just left with a ground full of stuff that nobody wants any longer.
That's right.
Because you lost your chance to sell it. It's like a horse-drawn carriage. Nobody's interested in buying your horse-drawn carriage in 2021.
That's right. And unless you're in parts of Pennsylvania, I suppose. But look for, by the way, financially over the next 5 years, a lot of oil-related pump and dump schemes where the price of oil is artificially raised, or at times when gas prices go up because people are traveling more, for there to be this high rise in oil commodities, and then they just get out quickly and it's going to get more, oil will get more volatile over the next 5 years as it basically moves its way out of the consumer automobile market in every major way, in the European market, in the United States market, and in all the diesel trucks that are still running in South America going up and down hills on unpaved roads are all going to run on French fried grease after a while, because it won't be available, because they won't bother to bring it there, because it won't be worth the price of shipping it. That's, I mean, and then electrical vehicles, and then
at some point.
That's
right, exactly. At some point, you're wondering where the gas station was that you used to fill up, and you realize, well, now there isn't one, and there isn't one down the road either.
That's right.
What's the use of that car that you have? So yeah, you're absolutely
exactly.
right.
And then we're going to be the big recycling and pollution stuff that comes with all these dead cars sitting all over the world. I appreciate it. We got to take a break because we're running out. We went way through that break as well, but it was a good conversation, and it brings us into our happy ending. So on the other side of this, there is some good news in terms of where we're headed, and it kind of relates to what we were talking about on a geopolitical front, on a technological front, and on an environmental front. And it's actually very positive, and hopefully will make you guys feel better. We'll be back right after this. Tear it up, Johnny Million. Tear it up. So let's see. I'll bring this. I'm gonna have to shrink this down so people can see it. Hold on. I'm gonna put it on the thing. There you go. Can bring this over and it'll fill up this. Yeah, that's about the right. Sorry, I'm covering your face right now, Johnny Million, to get the story on the page. Figure it out in a second. I'm gonna make a cool graphic where we can both be up in the corners, kind of in cylinders, when we have to show a piece of evidence or So and now that this computer can handle 2 display source things from this, I can actually use that. I can actually do it. So sorry, somebody was saying about the Delta virus versus Lambda. Wasn't Lambda the Revenge of the Nerds?
Lambda.
Yeah.
The tri-lambs.
Mm-hmm.
It's the first thing I think of.
Yeah, and by the way, just because another variant shows up and it's further down the list does not necessarily mean they get more virulent. It's kind of like when you talk about earthquakes, for example. Like if
back in 20,
a 7.5 is not 0.1% more than 7.4. There's a magnitude in there that carries forward. Like it gets worse by every percentage point it's an equation, not a strict number.
You are happy. Let us be happy together. Whether the weather is cloudy or sunny, I will always be your funny honey bunny. I am lucky. You are lucky. Let us get lucky together. Whether the weather is cloudy or breezy, I'll be there to say, hey, come on, let's take it easy. Because isn't it nice to have the friends that you do? And isn't it nice that the sky is so blue? And isn't it nice to say I love you? Chugga chugga choo choo woo woo. I am smiling, you are smiling. Let us smile together. Whether the weather is cloudy or stormy, I will still be there in the morning. I'll be right by your side in the morning. I'll make you breakfast in the morning. I hope that you like cereal.
Yeah.
Program Megaworldwide. It's now time for the happy ending.
I think they get that point. I think that's covered. Yeah. I think that's it's self-evident. Welcome back, everybody. Now there's there's a lot going on in the world, and oftentimes people lose sight of or start losing hope a little bit because they can't see past the current news cycle, and they can't see past, or they're maybe not even aware of some of the stuff that's going on in the sidelines, because I am of the belief, and I live this way, that the vast majority of people on earth are good people and are simply trying to do the best they can for their family and their loved ones and themselves, and don't really want to harm anybody. It's the default nature. I'm very Anne Frank in that regard. And I also think that every single morning, 1 billion people at least get up trying to make the earth a better place. Be it medical professionals working on cures, be it technological people working on some sort of advancement or refinement of something. How can I do this cheaper and with less danger and less pollution? Those kind of things. People are always doing that. There are hundreds of millions, if not billions, of people doing that every single day. I'm one of them. And so I have to believe that about my fellow human beings. And I just understand that. Now, there's a bunch of things where you're like, but everything, or like, it's all attack and defend and everything's falling apart and blah, blah, blah. Okay, so one of the big stories that's been floating around is about ransomware. Oh my God. They're going to take over our grids. They're going to shut down our hospitals. They're going to charge everybody Bitcoin to turn my ventilator back on. And the hospital's not going to have it because their insurance doesn't cover it. So I'm going to just, I'm just going to die and never wake up. It's going to be like 28 days later. I'm going to wake up and everybody in the hospital's dead, but my ventilator was running on a AA battery, so it saved me. But then I didn't need it. So there's a story in the news, which is really fascinating, that a ransomware group called Ragnarok has quit. They just quit. They just packed it in. They decided they're done. And I'm sorry, I'm covering your face, Johnny Million, but you can see this.
That's right.
A flurry of ransomware gangs. Listen to this. This is fascinating. A flurry of ransomware gangs have been slinking away from public view in recent weeks. Now they're doling out antidotes to their attacks as they surrender. Ragnarok, a hacking gang that's locked victims out of their computers and extorted them since 2019, suddenly appears to have called it quits. The group shared a free tool on Thursday that will help previous victims unlock their files and gain access to their computers again, according to security research. Not clear why Ragnarok is abandoning its pilfering ways, but the apparent decision to self-destruct is a move that other ransomware gangs have been adopting as well. Ragnarok is the 5th ransomware operator that's appeared to backtrack on its previous grift following increased international attention to ransomware hacking. Ziggy, ransomware hackers, as well as Avedon, Synac, or Synac, depending on how, and Phonics hacking groups have all retweeted. Pahonix have all retreated from their ransomware hacking this year. Who could own the Pahonix? Sorry, I just had to do that because of the phonics thing. They spell it with an F, but never mind. Each giving up their keys and neutralizing their attacks. They didn't just leave people hanging.
I'm sorry, is that Brian Regan?
It's Brian Regan. We love Brian Regan.
Okay.
Hook it on Pahonix. The uptick in hackers backing down in recent months is somewhat unorthodox, according to Brett Callow, an analyst at Emisoft, which helps ransomware victims recover their ransomware. Now, this is the question about why. You know how I tell you to go into the third paragraph of a lot of articles to see what really is being talked about? In this one, you have to go all the way down to the 7th one, because the Daily Beast tends to chop these things up. Other ransomware gangs in recent weeks have been working to avoid the watchful eye of law enforcement and world powers as well. Several gangs that drew the attention of President Joe Biden following their attacks that led to shutdowns at Colonial Pipeline, a massive fuel supplier across the East Coast, and meat supplier JBS have gone dark. Revel, Hookadona Pahonix. They all have cute names. The gang behind the JBS attack has since mysteriously disappeared from the internet, and DarkSide, the gang behind the Colonial Pipeline incident, also announced it was backing down and retiring. Now, why would they do such a thing in the last, I don't know, what's happened in the last 6 months that's different from last year when most of this stuff was happening? Would it have anything to do with Joseph Biden becoming president and forming a ransomware task force and marshaling the military arm and the law enforcement arm of our cyber command to go after them? Gee, It's been happening all along. Biden gets in office. Suddenly there's a huge turnaround and these guys are vanishing and being snatched up and put in jail. Now, some of them are being disappeared because they're being given ultimatums. Let's be completely honest. War game style. Some of these kids are being like, FBI. And they're like, oh, filling their pants with soup during the interview. And they're going, we're going to give you a choice, kid. You can join Central Command and work for us and do this, or you can go to jail quietly forever. And a lot of them are taking the job, quite frankly. So they're being put in, pro-U.S. hacker groups inside the U.S. government. They're being absorbed. No question. Others are being, chased down and they're saying things. Will you join us? Absolutely not. Okay, we're going to go tell some of the people that you stole from in other countries who aren't as nice as us where you are, So, good news. The other, and we got to get out of here, but this is the other thing I want to talk about on your way out the door. There's a U.S. company in California. Oh my God, clutch the pearls, Republicans, using 3D printers to make solid state batteries for electric vehicles. You know what a solid state battery means? You don't need lithium, which means all that stuff that we would stay in Afghanistan for if the Republicans had their way is no longer necessary. And the Chinese and the Russians are welcome to fight over it while we innovate ourselves out of a toxic hole. Goodbye. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. It's the House Sparks Radio program, Mega Worldwide on WCPT Radio. We're here every Saturday. Thank you, Johnny Million. Thanks to everybody in our chat. Thank you guys for the hype trains and for subscribing at infotainmentwars.com. We'll see you next week. All right.
When you said solid state, I
Great show, guys. Have a good week.
Thank you.
Solid stool.
You thought solid stool? What?
I thought you
Thank you,
were
Chicago.
solid stool.
I'm not gonna. And at no point. What is wrong with you, Johnny Million? What happened?
I don't know.
What happened to you? What happened?
Oh, like all of a sudden I'm like this.
Yeah. Listen.
All of a sudden.
Okay, now I shut that off, and you get a slapback echo, and I don't understand why.
It happened last week.
Right. At the same time, let's see.
Yeah.
And there's no particular reason for it. You don't go out there. There you go. There's no secondary source. Is it going out?
You don't go out there.
Is it going out two ways? No. Only one source. It's so odd. Oh, boy. Maybe it's because it turns off the echo cancellation that was happening in there, and then it doubles up over here.
Oh.
You know what I mean? That could possibly...
Did I make you yawn?
You almost did. I headed it off at the pass, though. All right, I'll let you go because you have a solid state to deal with, and
Yes, I do.
You do indeed. And I'll see you next time. Much love to you. Okay. Bye, Johnny.
Bye.
Bye. See you
Thank
later.
you, Trevor.
Bye. There we go. And then we get to say bye to Johnny Million. Like, boop. I always try to let him go without having to have him sign off on his end before I join you guys. Hi, everybody. Welcome. It's just me and you. Just the two of us. We can make... Now, the regular viewers of the live stream, I wanted to show you guys something. I think I'm the only person, and if you know somebody else, I would love to talk to them, who's brought up the whole Graveyard of Empire storyline is BS. And I've started to hear it get parroted out over the last week as I have been hammering it like crazy. And wouldn't you know, there's an article in Politico today. The old cliche about Afghanistan that won't die. Graveyard of Empires is an old epitaph that doesn't reflect historical reality or the real victims of foreign invasion over the centuries. Now, they try to temper this as a this adventurism in Afghanistan is more like neo-colonialism, America, UK bad guys, and we are always, we're over there because we just can't help ourselves to invade places just to dick around, which is a cartoonish oversimplification, and usually, the result of people with military-industrial complex paranoia. There is a military-industrial complex. They try at every corner to try and make more money, but they are not the single reason why we end up in wars. It's silly. Americans have a part to play in that. The natural extension of imperialism or colonialism or whatever are, again, talking even about colonialism as if it's a reasoning behind any of this is also an oversimplification. Can we please honestly talk about why we end up in countries in a complex manner that is equal to the reality that's inside, instead of just fucking reiterating zeitgeist over and over again? Like, I mean, look, I enjoy my fair share of internet conspiracies, but it is just as egotistical to think the CIA is responsible for every bad dictator in the world as it is to think that we're the solution to all the bad dictators in the world. It's the same bullshit in a different package. It's horseshoe egotism. And even, this goes to environmental issues. This goes to military issues. There's a lot of good people. The road to hell is paved with good intentions. There's a lot of people who were trying to do the right thing and went, who were looked at the Afghan women and children and went, holy shit, if we leave, they're going to be harmed. Those people are not at fault for thinking that we really only have one option in this, and it's military in this situation. They're wrong, but they mean well. They're not just like, secretly, I want Raytheon to make money. Like, fucking hell, get over yourself. It's childish. And it never solves it. It's never going to get to the point where finally we're on to Raytheon. Oh my God. CIA has no oversight. Of course it does. We have intelligence committees. They both look over it. They can hide certain things because they have to. Jesus Christ. Like, what kind of intelligence community do you want? Do you want them to operate in, we want everybody to use semaphore. They'll just stand out there. We want if the CIA only had a better press agent who came out and told us exactly where all our agents were, all of our secret bases, all of our secret everything, so that if we decided we needed to attack Boko Haram, they could hit us 2 days before. It's just, I mean, honestly. They do have oversight. It's our representatives. If your representatives aren't doing good enough oversight, find better representatives. We have a representative government, and pretending that they operate like this shadow government is just another version of deep state bullshit. Yeah, some people don't understand the word classified. There's a reason. If you know it, everybody knows it, okay? And if you want to live in a country where everybody knows everything, then don't expect that country to last very long. You have to balance the needs for oversight and responsible governance with the fact that anything you know, everybody knows. As far as you as a member of the public. It's why oaths matter. It's why your representatives take an oath so that they can be trusted. And if they violate that oath, that's why violating your oath is a crime. You can be against military adventurism and the Project for a New American Century's desire to take over the Middle East and wars for oil and all that bullshit without lying to yourself that if you were in charge, you would get rid of the CIA and ICE and borders and whatever. And that you would be president for very long and wouldn't be toppled by some lunatic from the Middle East or South America or friggin' a Canadian white nationalist who decides, this is my shot. I'll take over America and turn it into a white ethno-state. Seriously. And if you're anti-ICE and you're anti-Customs and Border Patrol, it's not their fault, it's our fault. The existence of ICE isn't the problem. It's who manages it, what it's for, and how it's used. That's why who you elect matters. It's why you don't skip elections. It's why you don't go, well, I don't like Hillary that much, and she's probably a neocon. She'll probably do terrible things. So, I don't know. I'm not going to vote for Trump, but I'm going to do it. Sorry. Immigrations and Customs Enforcement are the people who catch, drug dealers who are deep inside the country who are related to the fentanyl busts that they do it. That's what they should be for. It matters who runs them. It does. So I find it very frustrating when I know when the right oversimplifies things because it's politically expedient. It is just as frightening and frustrating when the alleged left does it. We do not have to fear complexity, and we do not have to go, we need, you know what the problem with the Affordable Care Act is? 3,000 pages. It should be a memo. You're like, come on. We are a complex country with complex freedoms. The more freedoms you have, the more finely sliced the law ends up being. Yeah, Jill Stein and Ralph Nader. Yeah, so I mean, if you're concerned about these organizations and their existence and what they do with your tax dollars, then your concern belongs in the area where who gets elected in your country. And I'm not going to run from complexity. Just, yeah. And there was one other good news story that I wanted to put up, and let's see if I can bring it up here. That's the one. Where is this guy? I know it's in there. Hold on. Where'd you go? Oh, here it is. This was the other part of that story as far as what we were talking about with Steve that I wanted to bring up. The new U.S. plan to rival China and end cornering of the market in rare earth metals. In 2019, China was responsible for 80% of rare earth metal imports, according to the U.S. Geological Survey. Although exports fell last year in part due to COVID-19. That's going to continue. Rare earth elements are more abundant than their name suggests, but extracting and processing and refining the metals poses a range of technical, political, and environmental issues. The Biden administration and the Department of Energy have targeted rare earths among domestic supply chain priorities as they outline an ambitious climate and technology policy. You know, a complex issue, stuff we need, weighing the value of extracting the stuff and how you extract it against the environmental concerns and the positivity of using it to better our other environmental structures and the trade-off. This is the same natural gas trade-off that we went as a transition away from oil to natural gas because it bleeds, it burns cleaner, it burns cleaner than coal, certainly, and petroleum. So is it a solution? Yeah. Is it the solution? No, it's transitory. And if you can transition while removing pollutants from the air and you don't, that's malpractice. So in this particular case, the United States has made previous attempts to reemerge as a dominant player in the rare earths supply chain that is responsible for some of the most important materials involved in electric vehicle production, battery making, renewable energy systems, and technology manufacturing. Under the Biden administration, the effort is receiving renewed focus. Elections matter. With massive investments planned in climate change technology and a hard line being taken on geopolitical rivalries and the national security threat posed by China. You will not hear anything about a hard line being taken on geopolitical rivalries and the national security threat posed by China on Fox News anywhere. You will not hear them talking about the Biden administration's strategies about that. You just will not. In 2019, China was responsible for 80% of rare earth minerals. We saw that quote before. Biden's sweeping $2 trillion infrastructure legislation seeks to remake the power and transportation markets in the U.S. and rebuild the country's semiconductor industry. It follows Biden signing an executive order in February designed to review gaps in the domestic supply chain for rare earths, medical devices, chips, and other key resources. And in March, the Department of Energy announced a $30 million initiative that will tap into researching and securing the U.S. domestic supply chain for rare earths and other important minerals in battery making, such as cobalt and lithium, which, by the way, we are bypassing because it is California companies that are making the solid state batteries that do not require lithium, and it is MIT and 2 other universities in the United States that are blazing the trail in non-lithium battery systems. Cornering of the market. It is absolutely correct. There is a cornering of the market with lithium and other rare earth minerals. Biden climate envoy John Kerry recently said in a at a CNBC Evolve Summit on the future of energy innovation. But efforts in the recent past to rival China in the rare earths market and rebuild the domestic industry have been stymied. It's technically possible to try and rebuild the entire supply chain because we once had it, says Jane Nakano, a senior fellow at the Center for Strategic International Studies, Energy, Securities, and Climate Change Program. Boy, do they need a shield nickname. All right. It's not that we're not experienced. It's not that we have no idea what the domestic supply chain may look like. Nakano said, but she added that business, environmental, and political factors may make the effort difficult to achieve, especially over a short time frame. China's rare earth dominance, rebuilding a domestic supply chain. MP Materials bought, domestic efforts to extract rare earths are taking place in states including Wyoming, Texas, and California. But the recent past provides cautionary tales, such as Molycorp, which reopened the longstanding Mountain Pass mine in California in the 2000s, only to go bankrupt in 2015. MP, which is why they need support from the government, because China will always undermine those companies as far as cost until they go away. And then, that's how they do it in every industry. MP Materials bought the mine and restarted production in 2017. The Las Vegas headquartered company is vying to restore the domestic rare earth supply chain from mine to magnet and is hedging its bets on neodymium praseodymium. Praseodymium? I'm going to go with praseodymium, with the hope of becoming the lowest cost producer. In recent years, the Las Vegas headquartered company received a myriad of grants and contracts from the Department of Defense, the Department of Energy to research and improve domestic capabilities. This is, look for this to be touted more when the infrastructure bill passes. You'll see a bunch of people, like Republicans will be standing in front of bridges they didn't want built, and roads they didn't want fixed, saying, I got this road fixed and this bridge built, right? We know this. It will be Democrats and Democratic governors and Democratic senators and Democratic congresspeople who actually have the smarts to come out and say, this is where America is moving forward technologically. The grants involved in the infrastructure program that deal with electric vehicles, charging stations, and the advancement of battery technology in the United States, which will be cutting edge for the world, is directly related to the infrastructure and the rescue package. And they will be smart enough, hopefully, to stand praseodymium. Thank you. I was right the first time, and then I changed myself. I should have trusted me. Thank you, Stephen. But there will, and Democrats within the sound of my voice, understand that like I told you about broadband helping stuff get through, it's one of the reasons why you got 17 Republicans on board, because you put that broadband in there, that nationwide broadband, boy, that starts to look good to all those middle states. How are you supposed to look up how to stick ivermectin in a light bulb up your ass if you don't have good internet? That's terrible. You're trying to get on Facebook and log in to figure out how, sucking pig pimple juice will actually make you, and I don't mean medicine for pig pimples. I mean, I just grossed myself out to cure COVID. If your internet's shoddy, right? So you put that in there, that's how you got it through. That's how you got 17 on board instead of maybe we'll get 10. No, you get 17. And you'll keep 15 of them because of that broadband. You watch, you heard it here. You might even gain a couple of others, even if you lose 3. So same thing is true about this stuff. You start touting the supply chain for rare earth minerals and states like Wyoming, California, and Texas mining industry, going in and extracting these kind of things instead of coal, which is way more damaging to the miners and way more dangerous for them. And you watch West Virginia coal miners, you guys know how to work a mine. You know how to extract stuff. there are jobs for you in Texas, Wyoming, and California that, you know, that don't require you to, you know, die early of the same thing your boss died of. So this is really good news. And Democrats, you would be well served, like I told you about the broadband, to mention this and the goal of replacing lithium as the primary source for batteries, and that America's technology will be at the forefront of that, and our factories will make them because they require skill, and they're not environmentally damaging the way the other chemical batteries are. And you will be able to sell these worldwide, and they will be the top of the line version of these things. And we will own the patents in this country. We will, corner the market on those things, and we will push forward with them. And then you've got jobs and a better environmental impact, all the positives you're looking for. And the Republicans are not going to bring it up because it makes them look bad. It undermines their narrative about, you know, Biden being beholden to China. So they can't bring it up. They cannot. So it's a freebie, Democrats. It's a freebie. You go out and tout this, and Republicans can't even push back on it because they'd have to admit that the Biden administration is fighting back on China's dominance in the rare earth minerals department, and it'll make them confused and mad. What about self-charging EVs? Well, you're talking about solar panels. There's a point where the charger would have to overtake the movement. I saw the solar SUV that was dragging the windmill, and as it drove, it spun the windmill and charged the thing or whatever. Maybe one day, but not every car on the road's gonna drive around with a trailer with a giant fan on the back. Okay, just not. So I'm trying to help out. I've been right about everything else. So just leaving that out there. Democrats, push this a lot as part of the infrastructure bill, and as us trying to make sure that China does not corner the market. And it's great as a post-Afghanistan talking point. So there you go. I feel like my job is done here. I must move along. Thank you, Jay. And I appreciate everyone saying that my show is so good that I should be able to afford a $2.4 million house like Cenk's nephew. That's very sweet. And the nice thing is if I ever buy one, if I ever get to the point where I'm buying a $2.4 million house based on the money I'm making on Twitch, I'm going to take all the money I've made from Patreon that has bought us this lovely gear. I will take the equivalent amount of money. It obviously won't be the same dollars because I actually use them to like eat and make show better. I will take all of that money and give it to charity. No question. Overtly, with total transparency. Count on it. As a matter of fact, the next time I get a series, I'm doing that. Because I will, in theory, make enough money on the series to not require that, to make my show run. And so I will just simply, but you don't over promote yourself. Yeah, I know. It's weird because I'm not bad about it. How please make a short vid about this green energy and rare earth mineral. I'd like to share it. Pro-Trumpers convinced Biden is a China puppet. We will make that video a clip. I have no doubt. I think Can't Stop Lying. It probably already made that decision to cut this one out for us because it's very helpful. Donate to cat shelters. Already do. We already do work with cat shelters here and always will. By the way, if I was ever at the point, and I will be at someday, no doubt, where I'm buying a ridiculously large mansion, 80% of it will be housing cats. No doubt. I will still be only using about 3 rooms of it, and my girlfriend will fill the rest of the rooms that are not used by me, my son, her, and her son with cats. I have no doubt. But a really nice one, not like a hoarder situation. They'll all have their own bowl with their own name on it and stuff. It'll be nuts. It'll be like Howard Stern's wife on Catnip. Who needs a mansion? Oh, they help. Believe me, the space is useful, especially when you have out-of-work actor friends who need to crash someplace for a few months. We used to call my house in Venice Hotel California because of the number of people who live there regularly. And I have given birth to 3 businesses, people who started their business or their career, and the only reason they were able to do it was because they lived in a bedroom in my house for free. So yeah, I'm a big fan. And by the way, this house that we're in right now, solar powered. That's right. I've got solar panels all over the top of my house. We have unlike most people in Las Vegas, or I guess not in the majority, there's a lot of people with solar panels here. But we pay a flat rate for our electricity because of that, because we have solar panels. This show is largely solar panel powered. So there you go. So, and that was a choice. You know what I mean? And there are offsets that you can get in other ways that I'm also going to do. Hal, the 3D printed solid state batteries from that firm still use lithium. They're called lithium metal batteries. The 3D printed company that they're working on a steel-based version that I'm referencing, by the way. Their current ones do, but the idea is that eventually they get to a steel-based. Do I have a battery backup? I have one of those ones that just for my computer. I don't have like the house battery yet because the system is new, but eventually I will be getting like like the Tesla house battery. Those are expensive. So over time, but the idea is that I will have that in the garage in case anything goes. So how do you stop the commercials? I don't know on Facebook. I think members don't have to look at them. Maybe. I don't know how that works on Facebook. I'm sorry. They shouldn't be overlapping though. Hal Sparks HS RPM powered by the sun. It's true. It is. It is. So there's a third party making a good rival to Tesla Powerwall. That's right, Drywood Geek. I've seen a couple of those. So so more than likely it will be one of the the secondary companies, but I will be looking into them and making my choice based on all the environmental factors that I can put into those things. Have YouTube on at the same time. Wink, wink. Yeah. You could call me a radical global warming activist. Okay, cool. Because you want the dinosaurs to come back, so you want as much carbon dioxide in the air as possible so that it can shift the overall atmosphere, make it more greenhouse heavy, have the oceans start to evaporate and overproduce oxygen in the air so that things can grow giant again. Is that the plan? Thanks, Getter9. I appreciate that. But you make every every choice you make, you try to just make the best choice. And we try on a bunch of different fronts to have a 1% progress thing all the time. Every day, try to do everything 1% better. Sometimes it won't be noticeable to those around you until it happens, like your hair growing. Sometimes just like, oh, I didn't even notice. And, you forget about your hair growing. You're like, I didn't realize how long it was. And then, by the way, I'm wearing a blue shirt, so you should be able to see it gets pushed back by my headphones. But yeah, look at that. Look at this business. Huh? It's getting there. So, yeah. I think that's a critique of the market, not of Hal. Thank you. Thanks very much. I appreciate that. So just understand that, and if I could give you an assignment for the week, it's start looking into whatever you're doing, everything you're doing, try to do it just 1% better. Yeah, just 1% every day. Just like, all right, how can I, even if it's just like how you wash a dish, whatever it is, just what's the 1% you can add, because it stacks over time. And at the end of the year, you're not 365% better at something because it's exponential. Everything builds on what came before. So it becomes, exponential growth, and it's possible. And all you got to do is make those tiny little steps every day. Just try to hold it together. So there you go. Anyways, I'm going to let you guys go. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. I will see you guys later on. I don't know what the plan is for the day, so later on today or tomorrow, and it'll be random, so click the notification bell and all that kind of stuff if you want to find out, or just, check social media. But I might hop on later because there's a bunch of, Trump interviews and stuff that are just ridiculous and hilarious that I would like to get through. So, yeah. But we'll work it out. It will be relatively at random, but because it's a Saturday, I may or may not do it. I got to take some time off sometimes to fix some stuff, and I still have some things I'm going to add to the stream since they now work, to try and improve my situation. One eensy tiny bit at 1% today. There's 1% changes I want to make in a couple of things around here to make them look a little better, work a little better, and serve you guys a little better, so the show's more enjoyable, and your participation, especially in the chat, thank you guys, is rewarded. Guys, I love you guys so much. I would put you up on screen, but that's like a dog whistle, or a dinner bell rather, for right-wing psychopaths to use racial epithets. So I would not. Yeah. How-do list is long already. It is. I have a honey-do list like no other. All right. I will see you guys later. Take care of yourself and take care of somebody else. Remember, 1% every single day. Anything you're doing, just go, how do I do this? Just this little, almost like a meditative act. How do I do this just 1% better? Your partner will appreciate it over time. Okay, bye.